These are my predictions for the month starting the 24th of July, which will be the new moon in Leo at 2 degrees. The way that I recommend using this video is listening to this introduction so you get a lay of the land for what the month ahead is going to look like, and then looking at what that means for each of your rising signs. Again, this is very general because we all know that these predictions need to be chart dependent, but I'm not going to repeat everything that I'm saying in the introduction in the rising sign portion, so you might miss out on information if you only listen to one of them. It's very tempting to just skip ahead to the rising sign, I know. The other thing is that I now have a calendar function on my website, and this allows you to see the new moon, full moons, and eclipses, and what sign they are in. So it's a super simple calendar to use. And I always say that if you want to try and understand astrology and how to integrate it into your actual practical day-to-day life, you have to know where the moon is. That's really one of the foundational basics of astrology. So hopefully, if you go on the website, you'll be able to see, okay, the moon is in Aquarius today, and I have an Aquarius moon. How am I feeling? What is that? What kind of life events am I experiencing around this time? Of course, there are other planetary factors, but learning to understand the new moon is the start of something, the full moon is when we peak, the eclipses are when things intensify, we can start to already better understand the rhythm of the year as it aligns with nature. Okay, first of all, although the new moon is usually a period of beginnings or endings, we have a Mercury retrograde happening at the same time. So there is a sense that we already are in process of editing and reorganizing our life or really focusing on something when Mercury retrograde started in the 18th of July and will extend until the 11th of August. But because there's also a new moon, it's almost like we're trying to finish or we're trying to end something, but we're not able to. So we'll talk about what to do about that. Secondly, we also have an opposition to Pluto. So anything that you're experiencing in this new moon is going to be intensified by its direct opposition from Pluto. And Pluto tends to make everything a little bit more intense, deepens our understanding of things, transforms us in some fashion. So we don't really get a sense of just lighthearted, fun, and playful new moon in Leo necessarily. It does kind of add a little bit of gravitas to this month ahead. Now, Mercury retrograde, I've already spoken about in my last new moon in Cancer video, so you can listen to that again if you need to get a little bit more color, and I will be discussing a little bit more in this video. But of course, just so that you understand that the retrograde period is simply a time when we're really focusing on the area of our life that that planet is in. So whatever Leo represents for you is going to be where that focal point is during these few weeks, and also, of course, during the new moon period. We also have the added fact that we're starting off this month with Mars just coming out of its conjunction to the South Node. And that is a time where we're generally letting go of things and flushing things down the astral tubes. So there is also a feeling of depletion, especially if Mars is a very important planet for you. And I would say that we're heading into this new moon phase with a little bit of exhaustion, with a little bit of overwork, maybe a little bit of overthinking, and we need to now come out of that. Through the month of August, we also have an interesting situation where we sometimes feel like we need to take action, but we resist it or we're not able to be in that combative state. And on the other hand, in the places that we need to show more restraint, we get a little too aggressive. And so our ability to discern between those two things is going to be hindered. And that's something to keep in mind, especially in that first week of August or so, when Mars is making its opposition to Saturn. So that's going to be where a period in which we're going to feel that more. And on top of that, we have a full moon, which is happening on the 9th of August in the sign of Aquarius, which has a whole bunch of other oppositions going on and is also going to be right before the time that Mercury changes directions again. So we are going to feel a little bit muddled at this time. Things can feel a little bit erratic or intensified as the planet changes direction and we have a full moon and so forth. So that 9th to 11th of August period can be a little bit tumultuous, and you want to be mindful of that, especially if you're in the Northern Hemisphere and you're traveling, it's summer holidays and so forth. I also want to take a moment to mention that at the very end of the cycle, which is around the 21st and 22nd of August, the moon enters Leo again. So we technically almost have another new moon in Leo, which is typically called a blue moon, but it doesn't perfect. So it doesn't peak. We're 4 degrees from it perfecting. And this is, in my opinion, actually still a good way to use the new moon energy. So if you're not able to complete on something, or if you feel like you wanted to start something, but it didn't really quite take off because Mercury was retrograde on the 24th of July, then you might find that around that 21st to 22nd of August period, where we get another sort of Leo new moon, you have another opportunity to kind of finalize the things that you started or truly take off. Because right after that, we have a new moon in Virgo on the 23rd of August, and that's going to set us forth into the eclipse season. A whole other video on that, a whole other situation to be discussed. So we do have quite a packed month in August before we get into another packed month in September with the eclipses. You will need to know your rising sign for this video. So as always, please check the calculator for your rising sign in the description box and punch in your accurate birth information. Look for Ascendant and say you're a Cancer, but your Ascendant is in Leo. Then you will go back and listen to the video portion on Leo. This video will make a lot more sense if you're actually listening to it using the rising sign. So let's get started. Aries Rising is coming off of a very busy month, and that might have been a period in which you were occupied with work, with taking care of your responsibilities in life, and just having a very admin heavy period. So you need to be mindful of your immune system and your energy levels as we move into this new moon ahead. The new moon starts on the 24th of July and again will extend for that whole month. And during this time, you may not always have the energy to take advantage of what could be a very fun and pleasurable month because the new moon is happening in your house of pleasure, of fun, of creativity. So you do have an opportunity to be playful, be creative, get inspired, especially during the time when Mercury is retrograde between the 18th of July to the 11th of August. Really important to manage your energy levels during this month. I cannot stress that enough. This is especially true when we have the Mars-Saturn opposition around that first week of August, when there can be tension in relationships with other people, with your businesses, whatever it might be. And we also have the added layer that Mercury will be changing direction around the 11th of August. So that period in particular can be a little bit tumultuous for you. Now, if you have children, your kids will be a much bigger focal point during the Mercury retrograde, and they may need your attention more, or you may be finding yourself drawn to taking care of them in a different way, or really needing to focus on something in that area of your life. And if you also have your IC in Leo, meaning that that also has to do with your home and family, this is going to be a secondary thing, which is also a big focus. So not just your kids, but also the way that you live your life. Now, if you don't have kids, home life can still be a big focus of this period, where you might find yourself relocating or thinking about relocation or having to deal with some home and family issues. Again, it's going to be chart dependent, but you can expect that one of the side themes of this month is a renewed focus on that home and family life. Now, for most of August, you start to be more focused on the relationship piece. But as I said before, you want to be mindful of where you're being aggressive and where you need to show restraint. So understanding the fine line between those two, which is not always easy for Aries rising, is advised. At the end of the month, we have what I dub like a mini new moon. And if you weren't able to complete on things that you wanted to at the start of the month, this is a great time to do it. It is a second opportunity when the moon goes back into Leo. It could be another playful few days before we finish off the month and head into the eclipse season. Taurus Rising, this is happening across the axis of home and work. So these are considered the two big pillars of our life within the astrological wheel. And whenever we have a new moon that's activating these big pillars of our life, we know that it's going to be an important month ahead. So that means that this is going to be an important month ahead for you. And in particular, the focal point is going to be on that home life. So figuring out what you need to do in your home life, what areas need attention. Are you moving? Are you renovating? Are you doing something that is centered there? And there might also be a feeling of being pulled in two different directions because you're not able to focus on work. You're not able to take care of the things that need to happen in the work life, which can be a little bit intense with Pluto there at the moment. The other thing is that your partners may be more reliant on you, or you may find that they're not that supportive, that you need to be the supportive one. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a breakup or that you're going to get rid of somebody, although it can be the case. But it could be something that they just need your support at the moment. Maybe they're stressed at work and you're the one that kind of needs to step up because you're in the stronger position. So bear that in mind for this month of August. This is also the case for your kids. Your kids will require more assistance. They might get sick. They may be sort of overactive in some fashion. And this is especially going to be true until that first week of August. So bear that in mind. During the Mercury retrograde, you will also be very busy with your kids, and that extends until the 11th of August and then really through most of the month. I would say this is a period in which home life is a big factor. Now, if you don't have kids and if you don't have a partner, these things can still be applicable in the sense that it's really not a great time to get into a new relationship, into a new romance, great time to get rid of people, and also that it might just be a good time to be focused on your home. Like, are you happy in the place that you're living? Do you need a refresh? Do you need to be spending more time at home? These are all things that could be cropping up for you for this new moon ahead. And it's also a great time to center yourself from an emotional perspective. So taking a little bit of time out to regroup and do something nice for yourself, whether that's something creative, something artistic, dancing, music, whatever it might be, in order to access your own emotional space. Money becomes also another focus. Now, if you are invested in anything that's deemed risky, like you're doing crypto, you're doing stocks, whatever it might be, real estate, this is a time where you do not want to be entering into new contracts or making new investment decisions, especially in that first week of August. So bear that in mind with this new moon. Afterwards, things get a little bit better, but I would just take a little bit of caution for that first week. And right after the full moon, right after Mercury stops retrograding, on the 12th of August is Venus and Jupiter coming together. And this is going to be a nice boost of luck for you. It's a great time to spend time with friends, do something good for yourself, go on a short trip, anything of that sort. So I would encourage you to use that 12th of August as a fortuitous day. Gemini Rising, this is the first time that Uranus is fully in Gemini for the whole month and will be here for the next 4 new moons. So until around November 2025. And it's a sort of preview for what's to come from 2026 onwards, from spring 2026. And this is a planet that creates a lot of disruption. It breaks us free from our molds. It allows us to be truly who we want to be. So it's a very important transit. Now, if you don't have planets or your ascendant degree at 0 degrees of Gemini, you might not feel what I'm talking about until much later because it's a 7-year transit. But it still symbolizes a very important turning point in your life that will forever change the course of your life. So I don't want to be overly dramatic, but I do think that it's actually very important and something to acknowledge. And it modifies the feeling of this new moon, which is really focused on your skills, being curious in life, being a little bit competitive, taking a few short trips here and there. So there is a kind of buoyancy to this new moon, which I think is actually quite positive. And because Mercury is retrograde at the same time and Mercury rules your whole chart, we know that this period is going to be doubly important for you. Meaning that between the 18th of July to the 11th of August, while Mercury is retrograde, you might be really focused on developing those new skills or being very social or meeting people in your immediate community. There's a lot of sort of going around and sort of getting things done. And at the same time, Venus is also in Gemini until the 31st of July, which makes you very magnetic. It makes you sort of more curious, wanting to go out, enjoy the luxuries of life, shopping, makeover, whatever it might be. Bearing in mind that because Venus is also the Lord of your 12th, it can also bring about some unexpected expenses during this time. So Venus definitely has its ability to make you very attractive to other people around you, but at the same time, it can also bring you some unexpected events. On the home front, There is the possibility that you might need to do some repairs at home, that you need to deal with a few things in your home life. It can even be something as simple as needing to take care of people in your home, and that includes a parent, because this area of your life will be activated around this time and is active for the whole year. This month is just one of the examples. You may find that this has already been happening since the last month, and we've already talked about that in the last new moon video, but some of these themes will extend over into the first week of August. Around the 9th of August, which is the full moon in Aquarius, be mindful of new investments or anything that is considered a risky investment, stocks, crypto, trading, real estate, whatever it might be. That can be a very turbulent time because it's a full moon, Mercury is changing directions at that period, and there's a couple of other things that make things unstable, including Uranus being in your first house. So not to be complacent about the productivity that Mercury retrograde can bring you. For Cancer rising, you have the benefit right now of Jupiter being protective in the sign of Cancer. So the things that you're going through, the ups and downs that you might be enduring, are made better by the fact that there is a protective energy which is considered exalted or in its best placement in the sign of Cancer. However, that doesn't mean that everything is going to always go smoothly. In this month, you are focusing on your money and the things that you own. So it doesn't necessarily have to be with income. It can also just be your possessions that you're looking after, especially the fact that Mercury is retrograde in the same sign, meaning between the 18th of July to the 11th of August, that focus is even greater. And noting that Mercury can be a little bit of an iffy planet for you. So during the retrograde time, you want to be more focused and more meticulous in that area of your life. Bearing in mind that you are currently going through a period of letting go of something in your career. That might have already happened in the last few weeks, but it can certainly continue to happen during this time, and especially during the full moon period on the 9th of August, where the focus of money becomes even greater. When Mercury changes signs around the 11th of August, all of those things can kind of come to a head. If you are trying to get rid of something from your career portfolio, let's say like a job that you're not happy with, or profession, or a client, whatever it might be, now is the time to do that. It is not advised to take on new clients or take on new work during the time of the Mercury retrograde, and especially for the first week of August up until the full moon period, because that's a time where you're rather letting go of things. I would also recommend looking back to the summer of 2018 and the summer of 2012, maybe more the summer of 2012, to see whether you can find patterns around money management at that time. So it's not necessarily going to be exactly the same thing because there's so many other planetary energies at play, but the Mercury retrograde will repeat itself in these intervals. So it's always nice to kind of reflect and go back and see, okay, what was going on for me then? What does it mean to be focused on money? What were my learnings then? And what can I apply now? Lastly, I really advise that in this year, you focus on the bigger picture. So it's really easy to get lost in the weeds. And I've talked about this before, but going for those bigger goals, widening your vision and not getting too bogged down in all of the details of what might not work or what you don't feel confident in doing. This is the time to kind of step up and understand your self-worth and your value. Now, the new moon is also asking you to think about your self-worth and your value. That can be translated from a financial perspective, which is why the theme of finances comes up, but it can definitely go beyond that. And especially for this year, this is a time where you are thinking big picture, where you want to kind of be able to go out and think about the bigger aspirations that you have for yourself. What do you stand for? And Jupiter's protective energies are helping you. So use this new moon as a way to tune into the fine details of your finances, but in the bigger context of how you see your self-worth. Leo rising, this is such a stark difference in themes from the last new moon in Cancer to this new moon in Leo. And of course, because the new moon is in Leo, it's lighting up your first house. It's lighting up your body. It's giving you inspiration. It's giving you a fresh start. So regardless of whether it's a first house year or what are your key lunations, I still feel that this is an important new moon and period for you and the whole month ahead. That being said, I'm not saying it's always going to be roses and unicorns, but I do think it's a stark difference to the last month that we've had, which was much more insular and much more internal. Now, the sun is a very important planet, let's say, for Leo rising, and therefore this new moon happening in your first house, which has to do with your body and the physical vehicle in which you operate in this world, is going to be important. And you might feel a burst of energy or a desire to go out and do something or refresh your look or do something new. That is the energy of the new moon. If you do not have an opportunity to do that or step into that fully because Mercury is still retrograde and you might be feeling a little bit more like you want to contemplate life a little bit, you have a second opportunity around the 21st and the 22nd of August when the moon returns to Leo for just a couple of days. And as I said before, this is not quite a new moon, but I still think it's a nice bonus new moon that you can use in terms of a completion of something that you've been working on for this period between the 24th of July and the 23rd of August. The other thing is that this is the last Leo new moon before we head into eclipses in the sign of Leo and Aquarius for the year of 2026. So it's actually the calm before the storm. And I don't mean that to say that it's going to be completely chaotic next year, but I would say that it's a very important year next year for Leo rising. Therefore, this is the last new moon where you kind of have a little miniature fresh start before you really step into something bigger in 2026. Now, money continues to be a theme for this year, for the whole year, so not just for this month, but for this month, you may still have outgoing expenses. Now, this has already been accentuated since mid-June, but it's still something to consider until that first week of August. So things that are sort of just outflowing, sudden expenses, and things that you have to pay for, pretty normal around this time of year, I think, but just something to keep in the back of your mind. And that if you are going on a holiday, which you may be more inspired to do, especially after that first week of August, you should buy travel insurance and sort of just be a little bit smarter about the way that you go about and do things this year. Around the 9th of August, we have a full moon in Aquarius. So this is going to be happening across the axis of your relationships. And it's a little bit tricky because there might be some things that come to light around that time around relationships. And I don't believe that it's because Mercury is retrograde that it's going to be problematic for relationships. But I do think that the Saturn-Mars opposition at this time will cause some delays or unnecessary friction around the relationship themes. So just to kind of be a little bit more patient with yourself around that period, the full moon being the 9th of August. And then shortly after, we have Mercury going direct around the 11th of August. So those two things happen quite quickly, one after another, and they'll definitely feel like they're jumbled together. And for you, that might present itself as many sudden changes, things changing in different directions, relationships kind of coming in and out quickly. And just kind of be mindful that this is just a moment that's going to come and go. I also think that the Mercury retrograde is going to be quite a visionary time. And as much as there's this external world experience when the new moon is happening in your first house and you're kind of going out there, there's also a very introspective element to Mercury's retrograde. So maybe you get new inspiration around your income or how you make money or what kind of work you'd like to engage in. And you also might have deeper meditations around this period. Jupiter and Venus are both in your house of spirituality. And so that might give you an opportunity to kind of step back and do a little bit of meditation and tap into some of your inner wisdom. So all in all, a very different month to the last month, and also very promising in the sense that you get almost 2 new moons before the end of August. For Virgo Rising, this has already been quite a month, and I outlined this already in my last new moon video, but we're sort of at the tail end of this. This is a month of rest and recuperation. So the 24th of July new moon in Leo is actually about taking some time for yourself. This is especially important for you because after this month, we head into eclipse season, which is going to be in the axis of Virgo and Pisces again. And therefore, you're going to be busy. There's going to be a lot of changes in your life again. And so now's the time to sort of do the calm before the storm and take the time that you need. The other reason being that Mercury is also retrograde. This is an important planet for you. And it's been retrograde from the 18th of July and will finish on the 11th of August. But in this period, you're also going through a time of internal reflection. And so taking the time you need is doubly important. Now, if you are 26, 31, 38, 43, 50, 55, or 62 years old at the time of this video, then what I'm saying about the propensity for illness or being worn out or feeling a little bit depleted might be greater, because this is the years in which Mars is going to be a much more active planet. And as I said, in the last few weeks, especially since around the middle of June, there's already been a lot of kind of action in your own life where you might feel like you're on a hamster wheel and you just need to get off. So this is another reason why rest is super important at this time. On the 9th of August, we also have an Aquarius full moon. In this period, you might be feeling pulled between this need for work and then this need to rest. So just bear that in mind. Mercury is also going to be coming out of retrograde around that 11th period. So in this time, there can be a bit of unrest, and you might not be able to take the rest that you need. But as a general notion, if you can take some rest this month, please do so. For Libra Rising, this is such a mixed bag, because on the one hand, this 24th of July new moon is all about your big ambitions and your hopes and your dreams. And you have an opportunity to think about those things and do something about it, whether that's joining like a philanthropic organization. What is it that you want to do to achieve your career goals? What aligns with your value system? So these are all very nice things. And on the other hand, you need to deal with certain one-on-one relationships in your life. So maybe there will be people that will exit from your life. It's a difficult time to enter into new contracts, and you might be dealing with tension where agreements and contracts are concerned. So there is this one hand of going out and doing the big things. While Mercury is retrograde, this is also a time of internal reflection. So you're processing things, then you're taking action and thinking about your long-term goals, seeing how that aligns with you. But at the same time, you still need to move through some of the more difficult relationship aspects that you need to deal with. And especially after the 7th of August, when Mars enters Libra, even though you might physically get a boost of energy, you may also find that the tension with other people increases. Now, you still need to be mindful, at least through the first week of August, with difficult relationships and also hidden matters related to relationships. So you may not always know exactly what's happening in these agreements or in these conversations that you're having with other people. Nonetheless, I still think this is an overall positive new moon, in the sense that it's giving you a fresh start and a fresh sense of motivation. And that's the thing that you should really be focused on. For Scorpio Rising, this is all about your career and the work that you want to do in the professional realm. So even though it's a summer time in the Northern Hemisphere and there's a feeling of just wanting to go out and play, there's also an extreme focus on career. So we can't help that. That's just the natural cycle. However, even though the new moon is focusing on that area of your life, because Mercury is currently retrograde, it's almost like you're trying to get those things off the ground, but you're not getting super clear on it, or you don't have the possibility of getting clarity until later. So the retrograde is the 18th of July until the 11th of August. And after the 11th of August, you may get more clarity around your career. So that's something to keep in mind. And you get a second opportunity around the 21st and the 22nd of August, when the moon moves back into Leo and sort of shines a light on that area of your life again. By that time, Mercury will also be direct, and so you might have a little bit more clarity. So I'm not saying that you should just put everything off until the end of that period, but I'm saying that don't get frustrated if you're feeling like you're not able to move forward. One thing that is great to do around this time is to reflect on what it is you would like to do in your work and your career in the longer term. So thinking about, what are my visions for myself? What are my bigger aspirations? Because the retrograde period may actually give you some messages or some clarity around it from that perspective. This is especially relevant for you if you have your midheaven or 10th house cusp at 15 degrees or 4 degrees of Leo. So if you have any planets in that vicinity, or if that 10th house or midheaven degree is there, then this Mercury retrograde is going to be even more important. You can even go back to thinking about what was going on for you in 2018 in the summer, and also in the summer of 2012, because at that time Mercury was also retrograde in the same place, 2018 is a bit of a tricky one because there were already eclipses also in Leo, so that might not give a true reflection. But it's good to kind of go back and look at the patterns to see, were you busy around that time? Did you have to focus on your career? Were there sort of chops and changes where that area of your life is concerned? Starting from the 7th of August, things do start to change and you might want to retreat. You may not want to deal with your career. You may need to take some time away from society and from people. So you do have that happening as well. So there is a career focus while at the same time you might feel like you want to go away. This might be a period where you want to travel. Where you want to travel for spiritual purposes, for study, for internal work. So it's not sort of like frivolous travel necessarily, but there might be a desire to go out and explore something new for yourself. So, and retreat from society. So again, the first new moon on the 24th of July that we have could be a big focus on career, but may not give you the exact clarity that you're looking for. And then when the moon comes around again, around the 21st, 22nd of August, you may find that you have a little bit more information to work with. One thing that I also want to add is the 9th of August will be a full moon in Aquarius, and this is going to create an opposition for you in the realm of home versus work. So at this time, you might feel the need to make some decisions around your home life, where you might feel pulled in two different directions, where things at work are really busy, but you also need to be focused on home. And that time will pass. That will be a very confusing period because Mercury will also be changing directions and going direct at that time. So to have a little patience with yourself, and ultimately you are going to return back to thinking about your career. For Sagittarius Rising, the new moon is all about your deeper connection to the divine, a sense of exploration, your personal life philosophy. So it has a very contemplative quality to it. And it could mean a lot of travel for you. So there is a sense of that, which is, I'm sure, very nice for Sag Rising, but that's definitely one of the themes that takes place as well. And this year has been particularly challenging, maybe for your professional identity, especially for the second half of June and up until the first week of August. So you might be letting go of something in that realm. And at this time, going inwards and having a deeper reflection about what it is that you want out of your career could be a theme that continues from this new moon. Now, you may not get clarity on the new moon, which is the 24th of July, because at that time Mercury is retrograde. And so there may be things about your profession or your career that are unclear or need reworking or just have a big focus right now, so you're not really ready to turn the ship completely. But towards the end of the cycle, around the 21st and 22nd of August, that might change. And I don't think that you'll take palpable action until after that period, because then the eclipses in September will really kick off changes in the space of career. Now, the rest of the year continues to be a focus of your home life and your deeper emotional space, your inner world. So even though there could be some changes around career, I don't believe that this is necessarily the main focus. That might be just a portion of the year's themes. The Mercury retrograde period, whilst it's also a deeply contemplative time for you, may also be a period in which your partnership becomes a big focus, because Mercury is the planet of partners for you. So again, that's the 18th of July until the 11th of August. They may have their own plans, they may need your support, there may just be a greater focus in that realm. And to be careful if you're signing contracts, of course, between this period, because this is a planet that also has to do with contracts for you. Now, the 9th of August is the full moon in Aquarius. Around that time, we also have Mercury changing direction again. So I would not advise traveling around that period. You may have this great desire to do that, and that might continue until August and even into early September, but I would not advise traveling around that full moon period. Capricorn Rising, a month of reflection awaits you. This is especially the case because the new moon is happening in your 8th house, which has to do with our hidden sense of self, the things that other people cannot see. And I mentioned this in my last video, where it could be a period in which a lot of things externally are happening for you. You're meeting a lot of people, there's new opportunities, things in the outer world are changing rapidly. But at the same time, the internal world is really important, and will be important for the next couple of years. So this is just the beginning. And during this period, especially up until the first week of September, you might experience a lot of anxieties. So being mindful of your mental habits and not getting yourself into too much of a tailspin is really important, especially during the time of the Mercury retrograde from the 18th of July until the 11th of August. So we're presented with this situation here where you have a lot of new opportunities. There's definitely a lot of nice things on the horizon. This can even be increased when Venus enters Cancer in the first week of August for most of the month, which increases your attractiveness to the world. But on the other hand, there's a lot of things that are going on internally. And part of that internal processing is also managing money. So this can be managing the money of others. This can be managing your own money, like your rainy day fund. What are you doing with your piggy bank? How's your insurance? What are you doing with your estate? What's happening with your taxes? How are you managing all of those intricacies that, again, the outside world doesn't see? And it's going to be a theme for quite a long time. So definitely for the month of this new moon from the 24th of July for a month, but even extending into early September. So that's also something that will continue to be present. So we have here the focus of money and your responsibilities, as well as your internal world. On the 7th of August, when Mars moves into Libra, this is going to be another focus of your career. So here we have money being a focus. We have new relationships coming into play. We have the seriousness of life being addressed, and we have career. So all of these things are on your plate at the moment. But we still have the internal work to be processing. So there is a fine balancing act that needs to take place for this month. And around the full moon period on the 9th of August, that money theme might be even more pronounced. Mercury will be changing direction. This is the time where we really want to try and stay calm and manage the situation to the best of our ability. Overall, I think a very mixed month for Capricorn Rising, as long as you can maintain your healthy habits. For Aquarius Rising, this whole month is all about relationships, contracts, agreements, people in your life. That becomes a big focal point. And one of the things is that we start the new moon on the 24th of July with a theme of relationships, and then we end on the next new moon around the 21st and the 22nd of August when the moon moves back into Leo, another theme of relationships. So we're basically bookending this whole month on that theme. If you are needing to sign contracts, I would really heavily advise on waiting until the Mercury retrograde period is over. So the retrograde is from the 18th of August until the 11th of July. And in this time, you may be definitely doing some housekeeping around your relationships. Yes, it can mean that people from your past come back into your life, that's sure, but it also is simply a time where we have a pronounced focus on that area of our life. However, because of Mars's unfavorable transit right now for you, I don't advise on the agreement signing. So you don't need to live and die by that. It would be better if you were getting rid of contracts around this period than taking new ones on. Also, around the 9th of August, when we have the full moon in Aquarius, this is also going to be highlighting relationships for you. Things might come to a head around that time. You could have a fight with a partner around that period, so kind of laying low if you can, to not have those majorly big and sensitive conversations around the full moon period. And also because we have this kind of unfavorable opposition with Mars and Saturn around this time, so to hold off on travel. Even though you may feel like studying or going away or traveling and doing something of that nature, that full moon period around the 9th of August is less favorable. The other thing to note about the 9th of August full moon in Aquarius is that it's the last full moon before we move into a season of eclipses for you in 2026. And in this year, a lot of rapid change is going to take place. So you get a sort of flavor, let's say, for some of the themes that you might be building upon that you'll be dealing with in 2026 and 2027. So more on that then. Pisces Rising gets different themes for this month. So on the 24th of July, we have the new moon in Leo. And that's going to be happening in your 6th house, which has to do with reinvigorating some aspect of your life, like your daily routine, your workout, what you eat, all of the different elements that make your daily life happen. And it doesn't sound really important, but the thing is that because we have eclipses also happening in the sign of Pisces and Virgo this year, which are also instigating themes of renewal, this new moon is almost emphasizing that element, but now getting into the fine-tuning details of like, okay, but how do I want to wake up every morning? How do I want to go to sleep every night? Where do I want to be when I'm doing that? All of these little fine-tuned details that need to be addressed. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that because Mercury is retrograde there, the focus of that energy is going to be even greater until the end of the retrograde on the 11th of August, until early September when Mercury is still present there. So you have a bit of time to work through this. The other theme of this month is also relationships. So Mercury's retrograde can cause a bit of confusion around relationships. There's definitely some housekeeping there. This is a better time to end relationships than it is to bring about new ones. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because Mars is still in Virgo until the first week of August. And then after that, as Mars moves into the 8th house, this can also create some ups and downs or fluctuations where other people are concerned. And if you are entering into relationships, Mars in Libra can certainly bring in a smooth talker. So that's something that you want to keep in mind, especially during the summer period. And I'm emphasizing this point because in that first week of August, your 5th house of romance is also going to be really highlighted. So there might be more of a propensity and certainly more opportunities to be meeting people at this time. And therefore, you want to be more prudent. So we have a mixed bag. On the one hand, you're sort of doing all the things that allow you to renew yourself. And on the other hand, while you might have opportunities for pleasure and for fun and romances, you need to keep your wits about you through the month of August.